Buy, sell, and store crypto on a trusted platform. Crypto starts with Bitvavo.
So my title is actually Webpack in 5 years, but actually that's only a clickbait, so I lured you in. And I will talk about like the last 10 years of Webpack and what we can learn for Webpack and for the community as a whole and for the ecosystem about this last 10 years, what mistakes we made, what problems we have, and what we can do better. Oh, come on. So my name is Tobias Koppers, and I created Webpack in 2012, like 10 years from now. So it's maintaining it for 10 years, and I started with maintaining it for 5 years in part-time, like 10 hours per week, and then I migrated to full-time working on Webpack, funded from Open Collective, from sponsors, donations, and stuff like that. And now I work more than 1 year for Vercel and maintaining it as part of my job. I also have 2 children, 5 and 3 years, and live in Germany, in Bavaria, so nearby a little bit. So 10 years of Webpack, I think we should celebrate that, and it's actually a pretty long time for the web ecosystem, like 10 years in web years is like hundreds of years or so. And I think we can say that we at least shaped the ecosystem a little bit, and I try to find 4 things that I think Webpack like shaped the way we develop web applications. So one thing why I started Webpack was like to add code splitting to bundlers and on-demand loading, and I think that's something that has been established in the community since then, and I think that is there to stay here. And nowadays, like every bundler is coming with code splitting, on-demand loading, and like nearly everyone is using something like that. And another thing what we did promote or like embrace is like having this idea of combining, co-locating your style sheets, your assets, and your other non-JavaScript stuff with your JavaScript modules. So it's like having this one graph of your application where everything is imported by each other. And I think that's also something that will stay in the community, and even specs involved like CSS module spec and other things that embrace that and keep that in the ecosystem forever. Another little bit smaller thing is that we also learn to use like bundlers or pre-processing tools for server-side processing on Node.js. So often in an application that using Webpack and server-side rendering and stuff like that, then we also bundle our application on server-side. So that's something that wasn't there before Webpack, probably because we didn't needed that, but I think that's also something that will probably stay in the community at least for a while. And another larger thing that I think Webpack embraced is like flexibility. So Webpack started with really a flexible way, a large plugin system with huge abilities to extend and configure and customize your build. And I think that's something that really embraced the innovation in the ecosystem, and new solutions, new ideas can be developed combined with Webpack, and also shapes ideas, new ideas in the ecosystem. So I think that's pretty good. But nowadays, Webpack isn't the most hyped bundler anymore. It's like more the boring tool, maybe the stable choice, or the choice if you already have something with Webpack. But they are like in the Twitter ecosystem also, in the hype-based development team, there are new bundlers that come up, or new non-bundling tools that are pretty hyped and make good things and probably everyone has a feature that's better than something in Webpack, and maybe performance or optimizing or something. So that's pretty much the hyped news kind of things coming up. And I still think Webpack is still the solid choice when you want to have something that is really stable or really flexible and maybe covers a lot of use cases, or also have a lot of ecosystem plugins you want to use. And actually, I looked at the NPM downloads, and Webpack is still growing, so it's not that it's declining or something that happening here. But yeah, we see that there is a lot of new stuff coming up in the ecosystem. So what does the future look for Webpack and for the ecosystem in general? Will Webpack still be used in 5 years? I think yes, at least for existing projects, because like companies or teams don't change their stacks so often. It's more like they use stuff for more years than we can think of. Actually, people are still using Webpack 2, which is like 5 years old, and they don't mind not upgrading stuff for a long time if it's working, and I think it's deemed to work at least. For new projects, there's another choice. I don't know what's happening in 5 years. It could be that something new is developed that might be better, or there are obvious other choices you can use and start with new projects. So what happens in 5 years, I don't know. It's really long time in the ecosystem. So I decided to recap about the last 10 years of Webpack and check what lessons we can learn from these 10 years and what we can keep from Webpack or from Webpack. 10 years of Webpack for the ecosystem and for Webpack in general. So I also want to say what we can do now, or we can do in future tools on Webpack to fix these problems or to keep these lessons learned. The problem is that there was so many lessons I collected during preparing this talk that they actually don't fit in this talk. So what I did, it's a hybrid conference. So what I did is prepared hundreds of slides for all this stuff, and I show them a split second, and the remote audience can pause the stream, read all the stuff, and we see on 1 hour after I discuss the important ones with the live audience. So the first one, initial configuration. So currently, people often think that the initial configuration you need to get started with a project is too overwhelming, is too large, is too much stuff needed. And actually, it didn't used to be that way in Webpack. It was more, when Webpack started, you don't need any configuration. It's just working with a simple CLI command. But it actually was that 5 years ago, we didn't develop that complex web applications. Nowadays, everyone needs to use CSS, JavaScript, assets. They want to process image optimizing. They want have a JavaScript dialect like TypeScript, or want to use stage 3 features that need to be transpiled for older browsers. They want to integrate extra compilers for their framework, like React comes with JSX syntax, Svelte comes with a different compiler to compile the templates. Angular has a pre-processing step for the production builds. Vue also has this cool single file components which need to be processed. So there was a lot of tools added to the web applications, and Webpack didn't adapt to that a little bit, so it's kept being it kept having not really low defaults that are used that way. So what can we do to fix that? So clicker's not good. So I think we should be more optimized in opinionated in having defaults. So we should adapt with the ecosystem. So I also think we should acknowledge the fact that these defaults change over time. 10 years from, maybe 5 years from now, we have probably very different defaults than we now have. So what I think we can do is having something. What some people already do is versionizing defaults, having presets that are versionized with the dependencies, so we can slowly adapt with the ecosystem, but also keep your project locked in a certain version of defaults without having a lot of breaking changes. Another topic is customizing. So I think customizing is really important and also really important for the ecosystem, even if you're not directly using it for your project, because it embraces this innovation concept of the ecosystem where you can you have a cool idea and can write a plugin for your bundler and for your tooling and try it out, maybe publish it to NPM and let people use it. Maybe it becomes a new standard. We develop web applications in the future. But it also helps to unblock users. So if you are struggling with something that bundler doesn't support or your tool doesn't support, then you can actually go into, modify it, write a plugin, or customize the configuration to have your use case doing what you do, and you actually getting stuck with a bundler and maybe have to switch because it doesn't support something. So I also think that was one success factor of Webpack in the early days, and maybe also nowadays, that it really has this idea of flexibility and customizing and stuff like that. But it also is confusing in some kind of things. There are 3 levels of customizing. You have configuration, you have plugins, you have loaders, and it gets really complicated when you have to use a plugin loader combination with some configuration to do something. So it can be confusing. And another thing is that the API surface is you can extend everything in Webpack. You have access to all the internals in Webpack, and that's a problem because we don't know what's actually used. We can't change anything in our internal API, and that's really hard for us, and also makes easy to break stuff because we could change internals, and that's weird. Yeah. So what can we do? I think the idea is we shouldn't have this kind of loader plugin concept. I think it should only be one plugin type, which maybe has multiple levels of APIs. You have a low-level API and a higher-level API where you can access both of these APIs from one single plugin, and that would make it easier for people to use it. Also make the API surface more constrained, so only expose what we actually know is used by plugins, and don't expose all the internals, which makes it hard for us to iterate on internals. What would also help, but it's really difficult to embrace in the community, is having some analytics where we actually get feedback from the user, maybe automated or maybe by opt-in or something like that, where you can we report back what are the actually APIs used by plugins, so we can know what we should improve or what we can drop or deprecate in the future. So another really large topic is performance. So the most competitors excel in performance because they are written in native languages, and compared to Webpack, which is Node.js, JavaScript, it's really Webpack is really bad at performance. It doesn't used to be the way. So if 10 years ago nobody or less people complained about performance and it was fine, but at least in larger scale there are problems with performance because of reasons. Probably the most problematic stuff is that we are struggling with garbage collector load because of large module graph, which are creating a lot of objects, and that's bad for JavaScript. And also, using JavaScript in Node.js makes it really difficult to leverage multiple CPUs to do these computations. But there are also architectural problems. So our architecture is really built for flexibility. So we on each compilation we build up everything from the start, and so we have the best ability for plugins to the easiest way for plugins to make their changes. But that's not the best architecture for performance. It would be really better to have some kind of incremental processing optimized architecture. But so what we should do, but it's really difficult to fix that in Webpack, is better it would be to use a native language where we can leverage multiple CPUs and also start with an architecture that have this incremental build by design, having it not depend on application size. That's also brings me to the next point, is large-scale applications. Actually, applications gets bigger and bigger, and that's a problem because like the performance problems in Webpack are really exposed because in Webpack it's kind of fast for incremental builds, but a little bit it scales by application size, and that gets more serious when the application grows. And there are workarounds where you can split your applications in multiple small applications, or even something like lazy compilation where you only compile on development what you're actually using. That helps, but that are workarounds, and I would prefer like if we have like an architecture that would scale with applications in a better way. So what I think we should do is like lazy must be the default for the future. Like everything should be lazy computed, and lazy just scales better with large applications because then you probably don't work on the whole application at once. Like, you work on parts of that, and if you only like need to compile that part, then the large scale of the application doesn't become that serious. And yeah, what I always say, we should embrace an architecture where incremental performance doesn't scale with the application size. It should be constant at always, and we should be fast always. That would be great. I also think like if we embrace this incremental stuff, we should also embrace it on everywhere. Like production build should be incremental. On CI, we should be incremental. Dev build should be incremental, which they already are, but we should be incremental everywhere, and we should also have less ways to opt out of incrementally. So like if you change dependencies, why does it have to reset the cache? It should be incremental. That would be cool. And yeah, now the slides for the remote audience. Don't forget to pause the stream. Oh, come on. Optimization, React server components, and more stuff that we can learn from the last 10 years of Webpack. So, back to the slides. Okay, so these problems with performance and architecture, we can't really change that in Webpack. It's like we can't refactor the whole architecture and rewrite in a native language that would break like every plugin, every loader, every user, and maybe every install process and stuff like that. So it actually would make more sense to like create a new stuff which would maybe Webpack or something, and that like would have this new architecture. But there are trade-offs with that, and I try to like summarize it a little bit. So what fixing problems versus a rewrite, does it make sense? So when we like fix the problems, we actually would keep like the ecosystem, the trust and the adoption of Webpack, while a rewrite would like lose all the ecosystem, or the plugins loaders would be lost on this rewrite, and we need to regain adoption for Webpack instead of Webpack. And yeah, that's hard, and it would take like more than 5 years probably. And it's also hard to make like a migration path for users to like migrate to something like Webpack. And yeah, but on the other side, like we can't fix everything in Webpack. What we learned, like we can't change the architecture, we can't we can't constrain the API surface because it would also break like all the users. So it's like impossible to fix some problems in existing Webpack. While on the rewrite, we could like optimize our architecture for incremental builds. We could like fix these deeper problems on the performance side. But is it worth it? I don't know. That's a good question. Yeah, on the other side, like fixing problems could also like fixing these larger problems has also a little bit risk of breaking users, while rewriting would break like every user, obviously. Actually, it wouldn't break users. Yeah, you could keep using Webpack and migrate to Webpack later, so makes sense. Yeah. It's also hard to do a rewrite because it would like take maybe years to rewrite everything. Do you have like the same abilities of Webpack, while in fixing problems in Webpack would like it would make smaller steps towards the process and like make direct benefits for the users, and that can also be done with a smaller team. And yeah, rewriting would like be complicated. So trade-offs, as always. Yeah. So thank you. Then I guess we have some questions.
Yes. Thanks a lot.